Time was when the only options really available for local businesses were sort of family and friends, personal, finance, maybe private investors, maybe bank loans, but probably not likely. I think there's a lot of great new sort of online opportunities, from the lenders such as Fleximize, Boost Capital, and so on, through to the peer-to-peer options like Funding Circle and ThinCats, but also the equity crowdfunding options such as Crowdcube and Seeders. And I think, a lot of the time, the debt option isn't really an option for the really early stage companies. Funding Circle won't touch a certain size of company, too small for them. So I honestly think that equity crowdfunding is a great route for smaller sort of high street independent businesses. I think that for the reason that it's not just raising finance, but it's also giving you a chance to market yourself as well. So for example, if you do a Crowdcube pitch, and you've got a business, such as a cake shop with a particular USP, then it's pretty easy to get the message out via something like a video pitch, and get the sort of investors on such platforms interested. I think it's also a case of them being consumers as well as investors on the other side. So the sort of the fact that you can really market your business and sort of raise awareness of it to a consumer base as well as an investor base is a great sort of boon for companies that want to sort of explore these equity platforms.
So, but as I mentioned in my introduction, bira, we have our own bank. So if you're a bira member, you will have access to our bank. We are the smallest bank in the UK, but we operate like any other bank, so we're regulated in the same way. But the good thing is we are a small bank. You'll speak to the same person every time you ring up, and it's much easier than dealing with the larger banks because we are set up for independent retailers.
Just to add to comments made, one of the real problems nowadays compared with when I started off as a senior partner firm of chartered accountants, as my earlier career, is that the bank manager has no knowledge of your business whatsoever. The government must try and encourage the banks to get bank managers to actually come out to your business, see how you operate, and be enthralled by what it is, rather like the story about the baker. That needs to be done. And could I take the opportunity, because I didn't in the introduction, to talk about, just say a couple of things about what's happening nationally, which has relevance to people in this room. I had a great part to play over a period of 2.5 years in changing the government's view on insisting on 4, in fact 5, digital tax returns a year. Because they said there had to be 4 quarterly digital tax returns for every business, plus the annual return. And they have now verbally backed off from that. And that was started that 3 years ago when they introduced it into the budget at the time. And the other thing, of course, which affects everybody, especially in London, is the hike in business rates, which is quite absolutely appalling and could mean the demise of many businesses. And there is a great need to review how business rates are calculated, based mainly on the land occupied, rather than the rent that particular premises obtain. Because at the moment, the playing field is geared towards Amazon and the large malls, rather than the independent on the shopping centre. And those are 2 international things which perhaps are not things which the other panelists would deal with it in the normal day life.
Yeah.
So just building up to this point that the traditional banks do not know your business, do not know the small retailer business. At iZettle, as we enable the small business take payments, like as an initial point, we learn how this business works, and we are able to provide finance to this business. Most of the business that we would provide financing in better terms than a regular bank, or we would be providing finance to business that before wouldn't have access to funding. And we have seen small retailers being able to open their next shop, which is very rewarding for us. Once you receive this offering for a financing, you can just click and accept the offer, and within 48 hours, the money is in the retailer's account.
Very good. We've got a number of people here who've got a focus on community.
Interesting, because it's not something we've particularly got into, but recently I was approached by a cocktail making company, and and I'm quite interested about what you're saying about your friend with the florist and that they've built through partnerships, because perhaps I was a little bit dismissive of it because I couldn't quite see what the connection was at all. And I think perhaps one of the things maybe I've learned from today and from listening to other speakers speak is that maybe I need to open my mind a little bit more to some new things, because I was a bit dismissive. I couldn't really see how we might partner with those people, but I can see that there is opportunity with us. I can't say we've done much yet. We focused very much on kind of our own business and elevating the experience for our customers in our own shops, but I can see that we probably do need to open up our minds and partner perhaps with some, you know, some interesting but relevant people.
In Balham High Road, we all tweet each other. We retweet each other all the time, and I think partly if it's a bit quiet, we're a bit bored, we tweet each other anyway. but it's kind of nice. We know each other, and we now know the faces behind the tweets as well. We go into each other's shops and things.
Fabrizio, your business was built on this premise. You know, how did you come to this?
So it's a tough question. We could talk for hours, but I'll just very briefly say that we saw a big problem, because marketing is a problem. Like once upon a time, you used to open a store and people would come, and in the online world that doesn't happen. And a lot of money being thrown at the problem, because we see a lot of the money spent on Google, Facebook to be wasted. I hope the lovely people who've been talking about it are not here. And so we thought, let's try to do something about it. And I'll just give you a couple of examples maybe of things we've seen being done successfully. The first one is a very, very simple one, inserts. You know, just put the leaflet of somebody else in your shopping bag, you know, like the simplest thing ever. My friend delivers flowers, and in the flower box you'd find a leaflet of someone else, like a coupon. So easy to do, yet, you know, you do food delivery, you know, in your delivery food you could have a leaflet of something relevant, you know, and it has to be engaging and compelling and well executed. But so inserts are, let's say, the modern day version of what, you know, has always been email marketing promoting somebody else. These days, you know, print actually works really well. Second one is a competition. We've seen people acquire users, thousands and thousands of users for like a penny or 5 penny a name, with a very simple competition, you know, win £1,000 of food or meals or books or flowers or whatever, and you attract as many. Women love it, by the way, as an audience generally, and women also spend a lot of money online, so it tends to be a very good overlap, and people love it generally, and you attract people who are very relevant because they enter the competition if they're interested in your product, and then you create all the buzz and expectation saying, discover if you won or discover who won, etc., etc. So there's a very natural way and mode of engagement. And last but not least, the idea of bundling products so that you can actually say, I don't just offer one solution, but I offer a host of solutions, and I'm a gateway to other things locally. So I always make the example, if you're an airline, you can promote a taxi, but if you're a taxi, you can promote a newspaper, and if you're a newspaper, you can promote a local business, and a local business can promote another local business, etc., etc., etc. So the chain is unlimited, and we're actually very delighted to see that, you know, we haven't yet chipped into the Google, Facebook big business, but we've helped in a tangible way hundreds of businesses grow up in a very sensible way.
I think, you know, a mutual at its heart is all about the community. I think it's important to remember that you guys you're independent. You're independents on the high street, but you're not alone. You're all facing the same problems. You've all got the same issues. You've all got the same stresses that keep you up in the middle of the night. But the most important thing to realise is that you're actually, as a collective, you're stronger than the sum of your parts. You know, you've got organisations here today, Save the High Street, bira as well, where you can actually come together and learn lessons from others. It was quite heartfelt that you actually, you were, as a retailer at the end there, you are using local organisations to support you. We've got a cafe as one of our members, And what they did was they found a local bakery. So they found a local bakery to support them. Both entities are supporting each other. So you've got that regular trade coming from the bakery into the cafe. The cafe is able to promote local services, local goods. And it's all about collaboration. And I think that's the key thing at the moment. There's a piece in the news at the moment around Ryanair. Everyone's got their own view on Ryanair at the moment, and their pilots are really feeling it quite strongly. And individually, those pilots used to negotiate their contracts until this latest issue. And they've used a really simple tool to become a unified body. And it isn't a union. No one's actually forced them to do this, but they've used WhatsApp. And between them, they've formed 4 large groups that are now negotiating with Ryanair for better contracts, better conditions, and better pay. And if you can get an organisation to do that, you know, the world's your oyster. If you're willing to work together, and you've got someone like Save the High Street in your corner, you could work against the banks. You could lobby government. You can start governments. You can start governments keeping their promises. You know, I heard David Cameron speak quite vividly and quite animatedly about banks having to support small businesses, but I've seen no actual evidence of that happening. And you going to your bank manager, as suggested, if you can get an appointment with your bank manager, you know, mine covers 5 branches now, so you know you're never going to get a chance to see him. But you going to talk to your bank manager isn't going to change that bank's ethos. But collectively, as 100,000 retailers, suddenly they're going to sit up and listen, because if all of you are going to take your business away from that bank, they're going to be in financial trouble. And I think that's one of the key things. And if I'm going to leave you with one message, it is that you are independent, but you aren't alone.
One of the really confusing areas is it's really the fragmentation that's going on in payment systems, and that might be good, but it's also fragmentation masquerading as choice. And I actually think for you to make sense of what's going on there, cash, cards, contactless, faster payments, how do you cut through all of that? And again, this is where one of the areas where I'd say working together is really key. We're starting to see it in Vendorcom and in the payments industry. Yes, I want the solutions providers to work together, but I also want to see the merchant community working together, because frankly, most of the solutions providers don't really understand that whole payments piece in your business. And they'll come in and say, you need to be doing this, you need to be doing that. When you look at it from a payments industry standards point of view, you're all contending with PCI. Like, what a nightmare. Should you be doing it? Should you not be doing it? We all want to be secure, but at the same time, that's a massive burden. If you're coming together to say, actually, this is how we're going to do business, we're seeing that this Wednesday, we've got quite a crowd, 25, 30 food and beverage, hospitality industry organizations coming together with the banks, with the acquirers, saying, and the International Director of the PCI Security Standards Council, saying enough is enough, we need to sort this out in a way that actually underpins our business. So getting to the core of what is driving your business, taking payments, it's really, really key. One of the other things is the over-teching of solutions. The solution to your business in terms of saving the high street, engaging with your customers, is unlikely to be purely a tech solution. So if someone is just coming in and saying, we've got this whizzy tech, ask yourself some really, really key questions. Is it like these guys? It's going to add more customers. It's going to up the spend. It's going to make your customer's life easier and bring them some benefits. And very importantly, is it going to make your life easier? Don't get hoodwinked with all the tech stuff, because it's about cutting through that nonsense. There's plenty of sources of information, but just be careful what hype, really not to listen to the hype that's out there.
I completely agree, and I think the whole proposition is to make the life of the merchant easier and enable them to take payments where before they were not able to. And I think in the last 6 years or so, we have seen tremendous changes on the payment industries, where before you would have to have like different schemes and different providers to enable you to accept different cards. And then these will be linked to monthly fees, sometimes like £100 of monthly fees on top of fees on a transaction base. And then nowadays you have solutions that enable these small customers to take payments through a much transparent scheme where you do not pay monthly fees. You pay a very small fee just to have the hardware, and then next day you were able to take payments.
I've just spent 5 weeks in the US trying to understand what's going on the payments landscape out there. And they are so unencumbered by, well, compliance. So I could rock up with my UK credit card, fill up the car at a self-serve fuel pump. So I was a bit taken aback to start with. I thought, all right, this is going to work, because it asked me for a zip code. And so I thought, well, it's not going to take SE10LU, because it's only got a keypad. What can I do? Oh, right, last night's Airbnb. What was my zip code? Put that in, where it went. So the whole authorization, authentication process, well, forget it. Just put it in, do it, make it as easy as possible. So I do hope, I actually sit on the UK Payment Systems Regulators Advisory Board, and it's quite good that we've got a payment regulator in the UK, because there's a lot of regulation needs to happen. But at the same time, I think if we're going to keep this economy competitive, given Brexit and everything else, we're going to have to lose some of that over-regulation that we've got on the space as well. So if we can, this is where your collective voice saying enough is enough, payments industry, enough is enough, Financial Conduct Authority, Payment Systems Regulator, I think that will actually help.
Yeah, just I suppose from a business perspective, it's really trying to become more tax savvy. I know we just talked about technology not being the most important thing, but we noticed that a lot of employees now are using technology, using smartphones to run their day-to-day lives. If they obviously turn up to work and there's in this case, a scheduling tool that's on a piece of paper, and they're not being notified of their shifts, and importantly, the time it takes to write down the hours they've done to push to a payroll system could delay how much they get paid, and it could actually mean that they are underpaid or overpaid. Can be a huge challenge for the managers. So I would say if they walk in and there's a technology that's embracing that's streamlining the processes, making it easier for the employees to just come in and do their job and go home, I would say that obviously the tech savvy element would be a huge improvement.
Well, for me personally, I'm sort of doing this Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Google+, Google Maps, and I've had to spend a lot of time making sure all the details are more correct than they were before, because before I couldn't really control some aspects of them, but making sure that I now am ranking in the Google listings when someone Googles baby shop Balham, that sort of thing. So just being aware that I've got to do more than I was before, but also I'm reminding myself of how to use Microsoft Publisher, not having to have. I used to have a graphic designer at my fingertips, and now I don't. And just to be able to get things in my own brand, all my, just the basic stuff in the shop, just it's all uniform. And at some point, hopefully I'll be able to afford to pay for a graphic designer to do everything all nice and fancy.
I won't say it's strong or stable or anything like that. I won't say it's strong or stable or anything like that. There are some points which haven't really been covered in simple words that I would use. In terms of the high street, with all the gizmos, which are really very relevant, and I've learned a lot listening to everyone speaking today, the important thing on the high street is footfall. How many people are in that high street? And all the gizmos should be helping towards getting more people on that high street. So in terms of what government can do, both local and national, it's appalling in most London boroughs where you have to have difficulty parking your car in order to do simple shopping. So if local boroughs stopped looking at the milch cow of parking fees and said 30 minutes parking is free, you would find that people would come in, buy their product, be it the piece of bread or the suit, and actually come in. Because people do not like, in the main, going onto their mobile phone, tapping in the numbers, and paying a couple of pounds for what is probably a half an hour's parking rather than 2 hours parking. So footfall is important. In terms of what government can do, It can help with business rates review. It can certainly help with the parking. It can help perhaps in trying to get a mix of businesses on a high street. Parliament.
Thank you very much. And just to finish off the panel, maybe we can go from top to bottom. Monroe, you can start if you like. Just, give us, in an absolute snapshot, what do you see as like your top tip, listening to today, if there's one thing you'd want high street businesses to take away and think about that's on your mind right now, share it with the audience.
Well, we've been speaking about the digital world, large businesses and the like. And how can the local independent trader on the high street compete with that? And the answer in the main is personal service. And you've heard this from some of the speakers before. And it's how you give that personal service. I mean, things have changed so much, not only the high street, but in digital purchasing. Whereas in my youth, you went into a shop and there was perhaps overbearing assistants assisting you to buy or not to buy something, and that you couldn't go out of that shop without buying something. Things moved on, and in the more modern terms, people come in and browse just like they're browsing on Amazon. But in fact, you want, and the training bit, which was mentioned before, which is a very important thing, because it's the fine line between pushing people to make them feel uncomfortable to actually helping people to choose what they want. I mean, someone mentioned big businesses. John Lewis. I went to John Lewis and they said, oh, we don't do alterations now. Now, I mean, the small shop that manages, perhaps subcontracted, to do alterations gets that bonus. And so the idea must be, for the high street trader, the independent high street trader, what can you provide which you can't get on the web? What can you provide which you can't get at Brent Cross, which is my part of the world? And that is the important thing, and to get more people on the high street. And the last thing, perhaps, if I may, is shops, retail product sales limit themselves sometimes by the hours that they're open. Many high streets nowadays have a lot of restaurants, coffee bars, and the like. This is very often a nighttime economy. And you look down the high street and see how many of those product retailers are actually open at night so that people are enjoying their evening out, perhaps drinking too much, eating too much, and buying that product you want to sell.
Maybe spending too much in the future. Maria, if we could just go around the line, just quick tips. What are the big things for you that you think retailers should go away from this conference with?
Sure. Again, I would say leverage the new technologies to know better your customer, build this relationship with your customer in the sense that you can improve the frequency that they come to your shop and increase the basket that they spend.
Well, my thought of the day is that there is financial assistance available. We actually launched a new initiative called Small Business Grant, which is a grant competition giving away £5,000 every month to businesses turning over between £50,000 and £500,000. So it's free to enter. It's just one form, very simple. So I would advise that anyone within that turnover bracket, please do apply for it, because it's a great chance to get a little bit of money to invest in the future of your business. And also the top 6 applicants for September will also be invited to our British Small Business Awards, which is taking place on November the 1st at the Grand Connaught Rooms in London. Thank you very much.
I'd just like to say I'm really not anti-technology. Most of our members are technology firms, but what I would say is ask what technology you do rather than what you need to be doing for technology firms. After all, they are your suppliers. Make your suppliers work for you, and that includes local authorities, it includes tech firms, it includes everybody that is supplying. I used to be a retail buyer. Supply chain is everything, and that is what ultimately is going to save the high street.
Thank you. I'd like to echo that, because as someone that is very actively engaged in technology to provide innovative solutions to independent retailers, I would actually say go back to first principles. because go back to basics, because today it could be really easy to be overwhelmed by the technology that's presented, by social media, and by all these different things to do. But actually, if you go back and you strip back before social media and you think about newspapers, why does a newspaper charge for an advert? How can they charge for an advert? They charge for the advert because they have circulation, don't they? They have eyeballs that get it on their doormat and they read it. And we know as well that the trend is that that's been going down. Less and less people read newspapers, less and less people buy newspapers. If you look at Facebook, it's exactly the same principle. How do they charge for adverts? Because, well, there's 2 billion people using Facebook across the world. So what I would say to you is go back to first principles and recognize with an open mind there's solutions out there where you can actually create your own little media world, where you can grow a database of customers and you can monetize that in the marketplace and generate completely new revenue streams for yourself, all through your existing customers, all piggybacking social media, sites like Facebook, and completely generate a completely new revenue stream for your business. There are all these solutions out there today, but go back to first principles. That's a really important message.
I'd say what I'm going to take away from today is I think there's a big opportunity for us to still elevate the customer experience inside our shops. We've got to keep customers wanting to have human contact and not fully shop online. We've got to be one of the reasons people want to keep communities alive. We've got to be viewed as part of our local community, literally where people are going to come and get their daily bread. Because if shops go, the whole area is going to go downhill, and then house prices are going to fall, and then all those people shopping online aren't going to be happy with that. So they need to know that. They need to know that's what's going to happen.
Thank you, panelists. If we can have a round of applause.